I think maybe if we look a little more carefully at exactly how the machine makes method calls, we'll see better how things are passed into parameters and how return values come back. So I want to use this code as my example. In order to understand it, we want to be the machine. So the first thing that we do is look for the main method. Here is the main method. It looks like what the main method is doing is generating a random sentence with a parameter and then printing out what it gets back. In order to see what that's doing, let's find generate random sentence. Here it is. It looks like its parameter is a length of some sort. And what it's doing is it's generating a random character with capital A and capital Z. And then however many times we told it to, it's generating a random character with between lowercase a and lowercase z. It's concatenating all those things together, and then it's concatenating a period on the end. Okay. I think I better find generate random character. Ah, here it is. S and F, those two letters usually mean start and finish. So if we look at what generate random character is doing, it's figuring out how many things are between S and F inclusive, and then it's generating a random number of that many things shifted over by S. This looks like what we've done before. So it's generating a random integer between S and F and converting it to a character. Well, when we call that passing capital A and capital Z in, that's going to generate a random character between capital A and capital Z. So we're going to get some random capital letter. And when it passes in the lowercase a and the lowercase z, we're going to get a random lowercase letter. Okay, so it'll generate a sentence. Just to be careful, I ran it a couple of times, and this is what the output looked like. You can see it starts with a random capital letter, and then there are 55 random lowercase letters, and then a period. So in order to see how this will really work, I want to be the machine, and I want to add something to our memory diagrams to make that I hope will make everything just a little bit more clear. So let's start right at the beginning of the main method. So the idea that I'm adding to our memory diagrams is a concept that's called a frame. Every method gets its own frame, which is essentially the place where all of its local variables go. So here we are at the beginning of the main method, and it has a parameter that is the string array args that we are not doing anything with this semester, so we're just going to say it's null. And then it has a local variable named s that has been declared, but it hasn't been given a value yet because we're just about to execute this assignment statement. So I've put those things in a box that is the main method's frame. When we go to call a new method, so when we go to call generate random sentence, what will happen is it'll get its own frame with its own variables in it. So when we call it, we get the space for the frame. The frame remembers where you're going to come back to when that method finishes. The parameter that we're passing in gets put into the variable that is the parameter, and then it gets space for its local variables as well. So now we're ready to start executing generate random sentence. The first thing that it's going to do is call generate random character, passing in a capital A and a capital Z. That's going to cause the frame for that method to be allocated. The capital A is going to get passed into the character S. The capital Z is going to be passed into the character F. And we're going to get space for its local variables. And it's going to remember where it is that it needs to go when it exits back out. So now we're ready to begin executing generate random character. The first thing it does is take the characters that we were given and do some math on them. That's going to turn them into integers first. So F is capital Z, which has an ASCII value of 90. S is capital A, which has an ASCII value of 65. So F minus S is 25, plus 1 is 26. So that's what will go into size of range. This code is going to generate a random integer The range of it is going to have S at the bottom, and it's going to be 26 values wide. And then it's going to take that and it's going to typecast it into a character. So that's going to make it be a character between capital A and capital Z. So for the moment, let's just say that it returned a capital E. The return statement here is going to remember that E. It's going to look into its stack frame to see where we have to jump back to. And then it's going to delete the stack frame and put that E where the call on the method is being used. So at this point, I need to point out that these frames, I'm drawing them one above the other. They act like dishes, like a stack of dishes. You only ever use the top one, and when it goes away, then you use the one below it. So we call them stack frames because they have this relationship to each other that they go on top of each other, and it's the one on the top is the one that we're currently using. So this statement is going to take that capital E that got returned to us and concatenate it with the empty string. That will create a string that has the capital E in it, and it's going to store that in result. So result will be a reference pointing at that string. This loop is going to make the stuff that happens inside of it happen length times, and so since length is 55, it's going to happen 55 times. Let's look carefully at what happens once. The computer goes to evaluate the right-hand side of this. The first thing it's going to need to do is call generate random character, and it's doing it passing in a lowercase a and a lowercase z. That's going to cause us to allocate a stack frame for generate random character that's going to remember that it's going to come back to this line of code. It's going to have a lowercase a for S and a lowercase z for F, and it's going to have space for size of range. This time the size of range is still going to be 26 because there are 26 characters between lowercase a and lowercase z, just like there were 26 characters between capital A and capital Z. This will generate a random number. The lower value of the range will be lowercase a, 26 values, so it'll be somewhere between lowercase a and lowercase z. Let's just say for the moment that it calculates a U. Then the return statement is going to look at the frame to see where it's supposed to return back to, delete the current stack frame, and pass that U back so that the call evaluates to that lowercase u. Now this statement is going to take that lowercase u and concatenate it onto the end of the string that result is referencing. So that string is going to become capital EU, and it's going to make result point at that new string. Now that loop is going to happen 55 times. So 55 times we're going to generate a random character and concatenate it onto the end of the string and make result point at that new string. At the end of that loop, we'll have a long string with one capital letter and a bunch of lowercase letters. This last return statement is going to concatenate a period onto the end of that and return that to the main. That return is going to look in the stack frame and see which line of code it's supposed to jump back to. And then it's going to take that reference. That's what the call on generate random sentence will evaluate to. And it's going to throw away the stack frame. This code is going to take that reference and store it into the S in the current stack frame. And then it will print that out to the screen and our program will exit.